Welcome to The Crunch, the only Catholic podcast still recording regularly in 2025. It's your boy, Ethan.
And I'm Patrick. Every day, you'll join us to go through The Crunch in a year, where we listen to an episode of The Crunch every year, and we still don't get through all of them.
Imagine if our podcast becomes a watch-along podcast for our podcast.
That's an old joke. That's like the podcast where they talk about last week. It's a commentary on last week's episode.
Is that true? Is that a real thing that people do?
That's a joke. That's a joke that someone, like, two white guys start a podcast, you know. Anyway, it's always two white guys. I've always said you can be as misogynistic as you want as long as you say white in front of it. You know?
I don't like bringing race into these types of conversations.
I do. Let me tell you about
Let's talk about your most recent police experience.
So I don't want to talk about the experience.
Tell me about the horrendous crime that you got profiled for, that you were pulled over and received a ticket. What happened?
I got profiled because I have a ding on the back of my bumper, and they were like, "This car must be driven by a person of color."
Patrick drives a Nissan Altima, and so they assumed he was up to no good.
I drive a Toyota Corolla.
Even worse.
And I got pulled over, and he took easy on me. The ticket was $160, not, nothing too crazy, but it was even cheaper because I opted to do traffic school.
Dude, that's the thing about guys who get their master's degree. They just keep coming back for more. You just love school.
You could say I'm in a postgraduate program. I'm in traffic school. I have a postgraduate degree in defensive driving. It was court ordered.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually court ordered. It is elective. It's so that the points come off my license.
Dude, crashing a car and then leaning over to the other guy and be like, "Do you think the professor will give us a curve on this exam?"
I sure got the curb, if you know what I mean.
Oh.
So immediately, this happened last time I got a ticket in the state of Florida, which is when I was a teenager. They just immediately send you, every traffic school sends you a notice, like an ad in the mail.
They're already, they're on it like Donkey Kong.
We got home when we'd already had 5. It was like it was right away. They knew it was going to happen before I did it. And
it's like Minority Report. But instead of stopping the crime, it's just they're trying to get you an ad for traffic school.
That's what stage of capitalism is that? So I was immediately like, no, I'm not gonna go with any of these guys. And so I looked up cheapest traffic school, and the first ad was comedy driving school, and I was like,
dude,
yeah, yes.
The instructor has a little flower that squirts water on you if you make a wrong turn. He's like, "Hey, do you need it? Sorry, I see your nose. Do you need a handkerchief?" And he's just pulling out of his sleeve, and it's filling up the entire compartment. Oh, there's the pedals are super big because you have to wear giant shoes when you drive.
What's great about this is that I thought it was going to be tame comedy. There's a little bit of like they do a lot of statistics about they give you a lot of statistics. I don't know if you're familiar with this, and so I'm going to know a lot about statistics.
Dangerous.
I know, right?
For a midwit like you to know about statistics.
I'm gonna drive to whatever podunk flyover state you live in now.
I live in Oklahoma. Whatever state you live in now.
Whatever podunk flyover.
Live in the same state for 7 years.
Yeah, you should try moving like a real American, like me.
It's so crazy. When we started the podcast, I lived in that state for 18 months before I moved, and I haven't left since then. That's so mean. You've moved more than me. Anyway.
That's what I'm saying. You gotta move. You gotta move like a real American.
All right, keep going. So are they like coming up? Are they going off stage?
Me and exclusively live in swing states.
Yes. You're the reason that everything is the way that it is. Are they getting up and they're doing a Type 5, or is it like all happening in the car, or like where's the comedy?
There's little like sketches that they do while they give you the information. So it's they're like legally required to give you certain information. Like if you drive, there's 7 things that the 7 reasons why people get into car crashes. And number 1, they're dressed up like luchadors and they're telling they're number 2, it's Beavis and Butthead talking about why you shouldn't text and drive. It's great. I personally am very happy with my choice. It was me and Nick. I was just playing it in the background while Nick was over. I mean, I was watching it intensely. If you're watching Florida Brevard County Clerk of Court, and there was a couple of jokes where he and I legitimately laughed out loud. Is it the absurdity of it? It was like, it's funny. So bad it's good, you know?
Yeah.
But it's much better than sitting through a lecture, you know, because you have to do 4 hours. It's like, yeah, it's 4 hours, so you might as well laugh a little bit along the way. Yeah. You know, my favorite line was not my favorite line. My favorite section was the the gender one. It was like, which gender causes more car crashes? And it said the answer, men between the ages of 18 or men between the ages of 16 and 25 cause more crashes than women between the ages of 16 and 25. And my brother goes, that wasn't the question. That wasn't the question they asked.
Yeah.
They asked total, and you just narrowed the stats, you know?
Yeah. I saw a really funny tweet on New Year's Eve that you probably saw this. It was like, be careful driving tonight. All the men are drunk, which means the women are driving home this evening. I like that. Man. I thought that was good. I thought that was a nice little, you don't normally hear that angle. What's in your cup? What's in your mysterious cup? You're always so mysterious.
It's whiskey.
No.
Yes.
No. It's whiskey. You look like the type of guy that drinks something besides that.
My one of my personal favorite driving jokes, not about women. It's when they talk about driving while tired. They say, you know, driving while tired is just as dangerous as driving while intoxicated. Go, oh, wow, I guess it's not that dangerous to drive intoxicated then, huh? You know? Oh, I guess it's not that bad. I'm learning the wrong lesson in traffic school.
I try to always drive tired. Otherwise, the rims would just be on the pavement, causing sparks. It'd be dangerous.
Yeah, good point. Good point. Yeah. You'd really damage the axle there.
Anyway,
so I'm in traffic school.
Yeah.
I paid the ticket. I'm in traffic school. I'm having a good time. The tests are just mind-bogglingly. All of the answers were A. Every single one. Yeah. I was awesome. Like, it's no way to consider, or all of the above. You know, it was one of the two.
Right.
One of the questions was, what's your email? And I was like, that feels... That wasn't a test. But yeah, so comedy traffic school is fun. They got luchadors. They got Beavis and Butthead. They got Arnold.
Maybe we're in the wrong business.
I did think about that. I was like, we should find a niche that's like court-ordered.
Yeah.
Drug awareness.
You have to do something with insurance.
Right?
And then it's because we're funnier than probably the average insurance person.
Yeah.
You know, but we're not, well, you know, maybe I'm tooting my own
The downside is that the course costs $5. That's the thing.
Oh.
I know.
Is it subsidized? Is it one of those things where like the soldiers get the bullets for free because Congress pays for it? Or is it
they might, there's a state filing fee that you might get a portion of. And you know, but I don't know how much they get.
$5 for 4 hours of content?
I know.
Dude.
But it's also you have an unlimited stream of people. Like everyone needs what you're.
That's true.
You know, there's
starving audience.
Exactly. They just want something. They just want something that's cheap and you'll get it done the fastest. You know?
What a great Google ad, by the way. They got you. You Googled Florida traffic school and you got with comedy traffic school. That's all they needed to do. I was like,
great, I'm in. That's all. There were a couple
absolute cinema.
Absolute cinema. I was ecstatic. I was like, let me see what you guys got. It was so unique. I was like, I don't even think there's another one of these. It was niche.
Yeah.
You know,
the niches are in the riches. guys who get tickets that like comedy.
Yeah, right.
Wow.
Guys who are cracking jokes with the cop, you know?
Did you crack a joke with the cop?
Of course I did. Of course
Yeah?
I did. He didn't laugh.
I got pulled over. I tried to crack some jokes with the cop, but I was 6 hours into an 8-hour road trip, and my kids were screaming, and his very bright lights were shining directly into the mirrors that were shining into my children's faces. And so I was like, you got to turn those off. Please, officer.
Do those have a night mode?
I'm like, I'm eyeing his service weapon. Please turn the lights off.
Please, officer.
You don't understand. I would
They're
never take a
freaking out.
police officer's service weapon. I would never consider it. But I will do what has to be done. Does that make sense?
For my country and for my family. So you and I had a conversation.
No.
A couple of.
I don't know what you're saying. Keep going.
I was like, I thought you would want to talk about the thing you were really excited about. The other day.
Oh yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. Come on. In case you guys have been living under a rock, everyone is Catholic now.
Yes.
It's we did it. I
gotta pull up that Milo Yiannopoulos tweet.
Crazy. I mean, we knew he was Catholic for a long time. He was hanging out with he's been hanging out with famously former homosexual Michael Voris, and selling Catholic kitsch. Whatever happened to Milo?
He's just he's a heterosexual poster now.
But he was gone and came back, right? That was
Well, he got kicked off the internet, and then when Elon bought Twitter, he was allowed back on. So he was soft canceled by having his platform, like Alex Jones.
He was one of the first ones I remember getting soft canceled.
Yeah, hard canceled, really.
Hard, yeah. No, that's actually getting kicked off Twitter, as many have pointed out.
Yeah,
is kind of
So this is
kind of game over.
What was the conversation we were having before I pull up Milo's tweets?
I'm pulling up our conversation. You and I were talking about how there is. Oh, you said something in voice memos, but I have the text summary.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about the crunch and the course and things that have been floating around on X, and I love this idea that there's a great American or Western Catholic revival that's happening, or it's about to happen, or something's gonna happen. I want the crunch to be a part of this.
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yeah.
Real ones will remember the rebrand.
Mm.
Real ones will remember the rebrand.
2019.
And the 2019 and the immortal words of Father Anthony Sharapa. Holy crap, you guys are doing it. Where we took the podcast from being a Catholic podcast to being a podcast.
He said that? And holy crap, you guys are doing it?
He was like, wow, they're doing it. They're actually doing it. Yeah, I remember that.
Sometimes I see his tweets about the food that he's making, and I'm like, holy crap, he's doing it.
He's doing it. He's normal. He's living.
I don't know what he's up to now. I hope he's okay.
I think about him making soup in the same way that Thanos makes soup at the beginning of Endgame.
What was he cooking?
He's just cooking soup, and he's got his arm is all limp from when he blocked half of Catholic Twitter. he kind of did the Thanos thing. Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh yes, we talked about this with AOP a couple of weeks ago, and I'm glad that we had him on. I mean, we need to have more people like him on.
Yes,
that are because people are just converting. Like Jeff is a great example. He was an internet business owner, multimillionaire, very well connected, and he's just like became Catholic. Mm-hmm. And who else is another Catholic convert? Another person who you actually see this with Hallow. I think Hallow is the best example. Is like there's all of these mainstream celebrities who are publicly professing to be Catholic.
Yes, dude. I'm calling this right now. 2025 prediction. The JD Vance Advent reflection on Hallow.
That'd be insane.
It'd be crazy. I might actually download the app if that occurs.
It's hallow.com/crunch.
Yep.
I think the JD Vance being the vice president is a big harbinger of this American Catholic Renaissance.
Well,
because
Russell Brand is praying the rosary. While you're saying that, I'm just looking up more recent.
For all intents and purposes, JD Vance may not be we had a conversation about JD Vance on this podcast a while back about the differences between him and Joe Biden. Whereas like they might not be the most orthodox people in terms of their beliefs about reproductive realities and the way that reproduction work. JD Vance allegedly believes that IVF is okay and mifepristone is okay. I've seen what he said. I don't necessarily take those at face value. I don't necessarily trust the interpretation that's being made of them. So I haven't seen definitively that he is pro these moral evils. But even if those two instances of him being pro those moral evils are correct, I would say that's a categorically different thing than Joe Biden saying every woman should have access to abortion multiple times for the last 20 years. I would say those are two different things. Yes. And at least JD Vance is trying. He for whatever reason wants to be an Orthodox Catholic. And I'm happy because for the last 8, 9, 10, 15, 20 years or whatever, a lot of very good, strong Catholics have worked extremely hard for this to become a reality. I was talking to one of my professors at Franciscan about what the Catholic world was like in the 90s. And he was like, Patrick, if you had been here in the 90s, it was crazy. No one was Orthodox. No one had any catechesis at all. And so if you knew how to communicate the faith, instant fame. Like it was crazy. Because
it was like the gold rush.
No one could do it. And so if you could explain the faith in a way that was clear and concise, then they would just put you on. And then the same thing happened in the mid 2000s with the youth conferences. Steubenville youth conferences happened. Righteous B, Bob Lesniewski was a sophomore at Franciscan, and they're like, "Hey, go to the main stage of the Steubenville conference," which now would be like an insane thing.
It'd be like asking Patrick Willard Nevy to walk up. I forgot your middle name for a second.
And so you gave me Andrew Jones's middle name.
Yeah. I'm on that Steubenville tip. It'd be like asking you to go up after emceeing the talent show. Be like, why don't you go on the main stage on Saturday night before adoration?
So it's like, and these guys worked so hard to make a cultural impact, and they talked about this. They talked about, the average person being like, oh yeah, Catholicism is an option. Whereas before it was like, Catholicism, you mean that weird thing that people in Massachusetts used to believe? The Irish immigrants in Boston, And so it's crazy to see Catholicism as a mainstream option, something that people are using the word tradcath on the internet that have no connection with our world. And the problem is
what's the problem, Patrick?
People in our sphere are like actively against this. For some reason,
which is crazy.
I hate it. It's like this is the thing that people wanted. This is the whole reason why we did the Life Teens and the Focuses and the Ascension Presses. And that's the thing that all these founders worked for. All the people that were at that World Youth Day in Denver, when John Paul II was like, go evangelize America, that's what they all thought about. That's what they all dreamed of, with Ted and Curtis on that couch in Kansas, And there's a picture of Curtis Martin and Ted Shree sitting on a couch. And the picture's like, this is when Focus was born, us sitting on this couch talking about it. And I don't know why. I think it's comfort. I think it's, a purity test. But I see a lot of Catholics that are entrenched. They're afraid of these converts because they don't pass the purity test, right? They don't pass the 100% Orthodox test. And it just bugs me.
I think the thing that is at the core of this is I don't think people expected or
you didn't think they didn't think it was going to work.
Well, no. They didn't certainly that. But I don't think that people thought that I don't think people thought it was possible for people they don't like to convert to Catholicism. I think
without some kind of like public change.
Yeah, I think there's this, like, everyone who's Catholic should be my type of Catholic, which is kind of the opposite point of what it's the universal church. It's like the opposite point of what it should be. Kind of the whole the thing that Paul talks about is like there's no more Jew, there's no more Greek, there's no more Gentile, there's no more Republican, there's no more Democrat. All those things. It's like that. His point was, you guys are fighting about all these things that don't matter ultimately because you've all been baptized and you've all been brought into this thing that's way bigger than any of that. And so now you have people that are saying, "Oh, I'm coming to mass and I'm wanting to pray. I want to learn more about God. I want to have more kids. I want to have a traditional family." And people are saying, "Well, that's actually another Republican."
Yeah.
Another,
exactly.
you think you're just supposed to have more kids? That's not what this is all about. How about you go through the exact same steps that I went through to become
following
Catholic?
along? Yeah, for those following along at home, Ethan is referencing an actual conversation that went a little. It popped off a little bit. At least 3,000 people agreed with it ostensibly, and that was.
That post is not.
I'm going to explain what it is because it puts a little bit of a point on what you're saying.
Sure. Yeah.
Someone was saying update on my brother's spiritual journey, and it was like, as a kind of dig against their brother, and their brother was saying, "I guess I believe all the main things about Catholicism: have lots of kids, go to mass, pray the rosary, and then one other thing." And the guy was like, it's actually about believing in Christ crucified and risen from the dead." I was like, "Yes, you're right, but what? Okay, he's not fully. What's the point of saying that? To prove that you know better, that you're holier, you know?"
It just goes to show that those people have never really walked with someone who's struggling to become a disciple. Because this is the process. Like, when I was a missionary on a college campus and I worked with students, after the first 3 months of doing Bible study every week, and we're talking about the Old Testament, so they're confused. They don't know what's going on. They don't know who David is. They don't understand the parallels that I'm trying to draw. Every week I'm like, remember what was the next sign? The rainbow. And then what was after the rainbow? You know, I'm doing that every week. It's Sunday school, right, for these guys.
Yes.
Like 20. And after 3 months, one of them comes up to me, or not comes up to me, but he comes to the Bible study and he goes, "Guys, I think I'm going to stop, having oral sex with my girlfriend." And this huge moment, right? He's not stopping getting drunk. He's not stopping having actual sex. I don't think
regular sex with
I don't think he's stopping having regular sex. I think he's still swearing. He's still watching pornography. He's still, the list goes on. He still thinks probably abortion is okay. He's still not sure about the gay marriage thing. But that moment is absolutely massive because it means that he's like, okay, there's something wrong about this, and I can tell that there's something wrong about this because of what I'm learning, and I'm praying. And so I'm going to like make a conscious effort to try and be better. And that's like, it's so powerful, right? Because then that gives the next guy the permission to then say something, and then that gives the next guy permission to say something. And then all of a sudden they're all working on it together and they're all talking about it together. And so to have people say like, these people who are converting or these people who are interested in Catholicism closing the doors in their faces and saying, "We don't want you here because because you remind me of my dad," is like,
it's because you associate with Catholicism that's right-wing coded instead of associating with Catholicism that's left-wing coded. I know that account that tweeted that. I know that account that tweeted that would have been fine. He was like, the main things like feeding the hungry and, voting for Joe Biden. He would have been like fine with that, Anyway, it's silly. Or she. I don't actually know the account.
Yeah, nobody knows. I spilled some beer on here. I'm going to clean it up with a Post-it note. Maybe.
Oh, no.
I mean,
but
the
other piece of it is like we who sit here in the externally holy
Ivory Tower,
we live ostensibly holy and virtuous lives.
Speak for yourself.
Outwardly, right? We at least live lives that appear to be quite virtuous. we live those lives and we hear about people having, being like, I'm going to give up this specific kind of mortal sin. And we're like, oh, that's it? That's all you got? Because it's so easy for us. And yet we won't give up like little gossips. And we don't recognize that our little anger on the road is like a sin. And we are refusing to give, and those little things are not as damning as mortal sin. However, you who have been given much is expected of you. Ooh. And that's why saints like Saint Paul is like, who? I am the chief. As he gets holier, as he goes on, there's that he calls himself three things, and they get worse as he goes on. He calls himself the least of the apostles, the least of the brethren, and then he calls himself the chief of sinners. As he gets holier, he's like lowers himself even more because he realizes how far he is from perfection. The further up the mountain you go, you realize how high God actually is. And we think that it's the Dunning-Kruger effect, but with holiness. You're right here and you're on the precipice of realizing how unholy you are. But you're right here and you think, wow, I've come so far. Where in reality, coming so far was getting to the bare minimum, and the bare minimum doesn't get you to heaven. You need an active grace to experience true holiness. And you can say all you want, well, it's really all about Jesus. But if you don't believe it, you don't become a saint, and you spend time in purgatory or worse. It's about an actual transformation of self. It's not about just a verbal assent to, oh yes, well, Christ is everything. And, this is really all about Christ. It's not about the externals. Like, you have to your life has to actually be transformed. And I think part of it is discomfort with, this person who I consider to be beneath me is catching up with me. This person I consider to be behind me is catching up. I feel that.
That's
with
scary.
Just with people in my regular life. I'm like, oh no, like this person's success means that I am a failure.
Patrick saw that I gained 133 followers on Twitter in the last 2 weeks.
No, I saw that John Donahue got a spot opened for him in the podcast booth. He was like, oh, they opened a podcast slot for us to do the games. And I was like,
interesting.
They told us they were out of spots.
Yeah.
And that sucked. But
but who cares?
This is purely for a point. I'm not here. Who cares, right? It's like, it's a podcast slot. Yeah. But it's like,
we get a podcast slot every week with you, our beloved listeners, and that's all we need.
In the grand scheme of things, and our listeners are probably thinking this right now, it's like, Pat, from our perspective, like, this doesn't change anything about you. Mm-hmm. And so why does Russell Brand getting holier, how does that affect you?
Yeah, that's true. It's really at the core, it's a couple different things. It's like people I don't like are becoming Catholic, and that bothers me because that means that it's possible to be something that's really important to me while also being something that is really important that I'm not, you know? So it's like, there's that tension, but then it's also fame and money and power and honor, those things that we all kind of want, if we're being honest. And we see Russell Brand and everyone's talking about him and paying attention to him and talking about, oh, he's praying the rosary. And a little part of you is like, well, I pray the rosary.
I pray the rosary. What the heck?
Nobody's writing articles about me.
Yeah.
Nobody's giving me sponsorships to go on the Daily Wire and talk about XYZ. I really think that's the reason a lot of people don't like Jordan Peterson or all these other people. Jordan Peterson, who, by the way, is at the Sikh conference, breaking news.
I bet they were trying to keep that secret.
I heard about it from my mother-in-law, so I think it can't be that big of a secret.
Oh, okay.
And then I texted my buddy.
Like when Jim Caviezel came out of nowhere. That was electric.
Yeah,
they had never done that before. There was never I was like, there's an actual celebrity at a Catholic conference who played Jesus, but it's a step.
Dude, they got to get Mel. Dude, can you imagine the speech that Mel would give? And it's for the bankers in the audience.
Hi, this is Mel Gibson. Because someone faked a text with Mel Gibson, and it started off with, "Hi, this is Mel.
This is Mel Gibson." I'm gonna start all my texts that way now. What was I saying? I think people get jealous, and I mean, there's a reason envy is. We like to talk about pride, and talk about lust and sloth, gluttony. Like all these are really obvious, but I think jealousy is this kind of sneaky one, or envy, where it's
because it's really easy to quickly decide that what they have is actually wrong.
Dude, I'm gonna talk about K-State basketball for a second because something crazy happened. So the coach of the K-State basketball team is a devout Christian man. He coached at Baylor for 20 years. He wants to be a pastor. He wants to build orphanages in wherever, when he's done
Guam.
coaching. Yeah, he's one of those Protestants. He's awesome.
Shout out our Guam patron.
Shout out. We have a patron from Guam?
We did years ago.
It was probably when Bagel's wife was stationed there or something. Anyway, I think so. He was talking about there's this player that he doesn't get along with because I think this player cuts class and is kind of a chotch. And so, but he was praying with Romans 5 about the suffering produces character, which produces hope, and hope doesn't disappoint. It's like a verse for the team. And he read a different translation. I don't know what the different translation was that he read, but there was a phrase in there about the undeserved privilege that Christ gives us through his sacrifice. And he was thinking about that phrase, undeserved privilege. And he was like, all of his assistant coaches were like, you got to start this guy. You got to start Doug. Because if you don't start Doug, his body language is going to keep getting worse. All the things about his attitude are going to keep getting worse because he wants to start and you're not letting him start. So you got to start him. And Coach Tang was like, I'm not starting him. I'm not going to do it. And then he read this verse and he prayed with it. And he's like, I mean, God has given me so much. Who am I to say that you can't have this? Like, I think you don't deserve it, but what do I deserve? Right. And then he starts the guy and they win the game. So it's a great story.
Great story.
Obviously, all the K-State fans
and
on X.
The Cubs win the pennant.
And the Cubs win the pennant. All the K-State fans are like X are like, I wish he was a basketball coach and not a minister. They're all mad about it. But to me, it's like, it wasn't really any decisions about coaching. It was really this guy had an ego that was getting him in the way of doing his job. And it was just God that helped him realize that instead of watching Moneyball or whatever the thing is that helps you figure out what you're doing wrong at your job. All that to say is I think that phrase undeserved privilege is really helpful. And I've been thinking about it a lot too, just with myself and with other people. Like everything we have is an undeserved privilege. Life itself. And so then you're looking at these people and it's kind of like Candace Owens doesn't deserve to speak about Catholicism in that way. Or Jordan Peterson doesn't deserve to speak about Catholicism that way. Or Patrick Nevy doesn't deserve to have that platform that he has on X.
With friends like these, 2.5 anti-Semites.
We're not going to say which two.
Which was the half? It's like, which one would you rather be?
But
it's actually me and Jordan Peterson are both half anti-Semitic, and Candace Owens is 2.
It's just 2, yeah. What was I saying? I was off my point. But we all the Catholics struggle with this because of the Boston Irish thing back in the day. Being Catholic used to be this thing that was like looked down upon and spit upon and kind of underground, and all the way up until like 2 or 3 years ago, it was like bad to do it, you know, and like wrong. I probably say through McCarrick and like the immediate fallout after McCarrick. So pretty much through 2020, 2021.
Until like yesterday, it's been uncool and wrong to be Catholic.
Yes, and so there's this mindset.
Now you don't even have to you don't even have to defend the pedophile thing. Be like, it barely happens. You'd be like, yeah, it happens all the time, but it happens more in transgenders and public schools, and you just go boom and you just move on. Right. It's like it's not even like a problem anymore. The scandals,
Someone replied to me today, and it was like, I don't know if the Catholic Church is right about everything. What about the Crusades and the Inquisition and the sexual abuse crisis? And I was like, you're still hitting that gong? I thought we were past that as a society, 2
out of 3 of those were fine. I'll let you decide which 2.
We were under the boot of all of this for so long, thinking that we couldn't be proud to be Catholic and thinking that we weren't really allowed to know anything about anything because America's a Protestant nation. And so if you're not Protestant, then it's kind of weird that you're not generally. And so then when people start to convert, it's like, well, this is our thing. And you're like, this is like, we all kind of suffered together. You don't really know what it's like. You're just trying to come in when it's like at the high point. This guy
came in at the 11th hour and you're going to give him the same day's wage?
Exactly. It's the exact same thing.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is what we labored for.
Right.
This is what we did it for. That's that to bring it back to that. It's like that.
Yeah.
I heard Dr. Cirilla talk about what it was like in the 90s, and he was like, not him, but he was like, I watched Father Mike Scanlon and the husband and wife that started this business that they
Nelson Mandela was Catholic.
It's like this Catholic action where they shut down the Planned Parenthood in Steubenville, and then they set their sights on the one in Pittsburgh. But then Hillary Clinton passed the FACE Act and made it more difficult. It made it like a federal prison thing to do it. Oh. They were chaining themselves to the doors so people couldn't get in. And they were going to jail for days for it because it was only like a moderate public nuisance, and so it was only like a municipal crime. But then it became a federal offense on an abortion clinic, and so now only like badasses like Lauren Handy do it. You know, they're like, I'm gonna go to jail for 10 years, I guess. But anyway, it's like that's what it was like in the 90s, and now it is a more popular opinion to be against abortion than it is to be for it. A lot of bad things still happen, but a lot of abortion still happens, but it's still a logical, it's a mainstream opinion to be anti-abortion. There's people that have platforms of millions that are like, abortion is obviously wrong, and so is birth control, and so is IVF. The things that Michael Knowles talks about on the Daily Wire would have been niche and weird opinions at Steubenville 10 years ago. Even among Catholic, he talks about how freedom of speech is a bad thing. When I first heard that at Steubenville, I was like, that's never going to catch on. Yeah. I was like, I read that from Leo XIII. I was like, no one's ever going to agree with that.
Yep.
And you have this guy who has 1 million followers on Twitter talking about how free speech is a bad thing, and he still gets paid. It's insane. And so like this is what those people fought for. This is what our forefathers fought for. Mike Cirilla and Dr. Scott Hahn and John Bergsman. And we should just carry the torch forward instead of hand-wringing about how it's bringing more people in. Yeah.
I think we got so obsessed with the smaller, purer church thing that everyone was convinced that if they were still Catholic, then that meant that they were pure. That meant that they were part of they were Benedict's favorite little crew, and you got to be part of the in crowd. And now you go to college and it's frat guys and sorority girls going to mass. And it's just like normal. The pews are full of people. Sunday or Christmas mass, couldn't find a seat. It's just packed, right? And the people are talking through mass and they're on their phone. I don't know why they're there, but they're there, right? Like,
praise God.
A lot of stuff pisses me off at Catholic Church when I go to it. A lot of stuff makes me upset. But it's still like, I mean, how awesome is that? And I think it's only going to get better and better. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. I really don't get it.
I do think that most people are excited that celebrities are becoming Catholic.
The average person is. The normal person is. It's the problem is that the normal person doesn't have a platform. And so, there's like an outsized proportion of people that are saying negative things about it.
There's an army of whiners, and a lot of them are being platformed by...
There's a bunch of East Coast single people and or married with no children people or people that work at big consulting firms that dox the former the current vice president. But it's neither here nor there. And these people are all like they're all in cahoots to like advance their weird Marxist version of Catholicism. And I don't know. I think it needs to stop. It won't win. It can't win. Marxism is inherently, it defeats itself. It can't go anywhere because it's not rooted in the gospel of life.
Also,
it's rooted in a secular
Marxism is losing.
Yes,
it's losing. People have voted against it. I feel. I fear.
I don't even, where are they coming from? What do they think is going to happen? I'm speaking in genuine faith. Like, what are these people who are like still clinging to that like weird 2010s leftist version of Catholicism? Like, who is their champion? It's not people like Cardinal Supich. He's just an old school gay, you know? I don't know if he's gay, but let me pull that back for a second.
He's like a.
I'm not trying to slander a cardinal of the Catholic Church, but he's just like a guy. He's one of those old school prelates from the 60s who's kind of like, whatever, you know? Yeah.
It's the Balthazar Ronner skit that he put together. He
wrote a skit?
I've talked about this on
Cardinal Superch is a theater kid?
No.
Explains everything.
Hans Urs von Balthasar is a theater kid.
Oh.
So in the wake of Vatican II, right? Dare we hope, jazz hands, that all men are saved.
That's funny.
Do a little jazz square. In the wake of Vatican II, the theologians and the parity that were there, which a priest, one of the monsignors in my hometown was just at Vatican II casually. He's that old that he was there.
That is an old guy. That's a long time ago.
Guy.
I mean, he had to be at least like 24 or 25 in the 60s. In 62.
Yes. Insane. Yeah.
That's crazy. So he was born in like 1905.
No.
That's nuts.
He had to be 25 in the 60s, so he must have been born in 1900. Engineer over here, guys.
Dude, he was a prospector. He went out.
Oh boy, they were digging for something at the Vatican Council, but it wasn't for gold.
They were digging. Never mind. Keep on.
Yeah. So Hans Urs von Balthasar and other theologians, they would write little parody sketches and little plays that would kind of poke fun at each other. They would write these little scripts that would make fun of the arguments that someone was making at the council. And one of them that Hans Urs von Balthasar made about Karl Rahner, yeah, the Jesuit Karl Rahner, was Karl Rahner, the church talking to the revolutionary. And it was, the revolutionary, like the French Revolutionary, or the one that's the liberty, equality, and fraternity. And basically the summary of the conversation was the revolutionary saying, well, we believe in liberty, equality, and fraternity. And the church saying, yeah, we agree with that. We believe in that too. And we are the champions of liberty, equality, and fraternity. Look at all the places in scripture that talk about personal freedom and all of the places in scripture that talk about universal brotherhood. And the revolutionary said, okay, well, you've had 2,000 years to achieve it and you didn't. So why do we need you?
Fair
and
point.
that's the point of if the church tries to align itself with the revolutionaire, the problem is the revolutionary is like, well, you are the order, you are the established order.
It's like Kamala running as the change candidate.
It's like, we don't need you for this then, so we're gonna oust you. And so it's a problem. It's a problem when anything goes liberal, actually, because if the conservative element goes liberal, the liberal element will win. Because the liberal element is designed to be like, well, we don't need you anyway. So the logic just flies out the window, because, if you were so liberal, you would have just achieved these liberties that we don't have. And so we can't give in to liberal modes. And that's the biggest problem with the right now, is that they'll, the left will say, you can't misgender someone. And the right says, what about freedom of speech? And it's like, well, we've been trying to get freedom of speech and you never did it. And so why do we need you if you're so classically liberal?
Right.
It's the real argument should be that kind of speech can be restricted. That kind of speech shouldn't. Like, we should just name the things that can and cannot be restricted.
Right. Oh, that's such a dumb argument.
It's something that happens to conservatives all the time. They'll just fall back on classically liberal principles.
No.
And
It's the issue. This is why more people need to be Catholic, because if you have classical liberalism without the backbone of Catholicism, then you're gonna get stuck. There's only so far you can go. If you can't definitively say that there is truth and there is not truth, and I can know with my reason what that truth is, and it's not up for debate, I don't think you have in classical liberalism, if I'm not mistaken. I don't think you have that.
Have what?
Have the lack of relativity in terms of morality?
No, not really. Mm-mm.
What does classical liberalism have that Catholicism does not?
Oh, nothing. I'm confident in saying nothing.
What does Catholicism have that classical liberalism does not?
You're gonna hate me, but it
Everything.
has the actual the real way the conversation between the church and the revolutionary should go is the revolutionary says we're for liberty, equality, and fraternity, and the church says you can't have all three of those things the way you've defined them. You've defined those things all wrong.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. It's
happened.
the ability. What I mean is like the ability to define it, right? In a way that we know is true. Is kind of what I'm getting at. Like the church is the only institution that can say this is what liberty is. This is what equality is. This is what fraternity is. That's what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
I was talking to someone about this on Twitter because they were like, I said, can a Catholic be a socialist? And someone said, well, Catholic ideas shouldn't have any bearing on your economic ideas. And I said, the church has a lot to say on economics, actually. And he was like, why?
Yeah.
I was like, well, because economics,
justice.
Economics is a matter of justice, which is a matter of morality, which is a matter of theology.
Faith.
And so there you go. It's it's important. But you see this, and this is why I want to go back to like the Marxist wing of the church and the temptation of the church to ally itself with liberal ideas, including classical liberal ones, which conservatives today would sometimes consider themselves classical liberal. Every high schooler has that moment where they're like, I'm a classical liberal.
I think that was just you. The rest of us were dating girls and driving cars.
No, because that was in the mid 2000s. In the mid 2000s, in the 2010s, I should say. In the 2010s, that was when Ben Shapiro was going to college campuses and owning liberals and being like, well, actually, I'm a classical liberal. I believe in freedom of self-determination. That's what happened. What happened with the French Revolution was you cannot hold the liberal concept of liberty and equality and fraternity at the same time, because one of those things is naturally like your self-determination at some point is going to make you unequal from someone else. And that unequalness is going to make you not their brother. And so it's going to fight. You're going to fight amongst yourselves eventually, which is why liberalism kind of split off into French Revolutionary split off kind of into liberalism for liberty, fascism for fraternity, and socialism/communism for equality. And those are kind of like we all sit in the liberal middle and we kind of lean towards one or the other. So you just got to leave that mode of thinking and be like, I am a Catholic. Yes. And Catholicism includes this conception of how the world works that reflects reality. I'm not going to invent how I think the world should work and then create an economic system around that, or ascribe to the one that I like the best, or the one that has the most followers, on Twitter.
Yeah. It's people lack the ability to operate from first principles. I lack this ability. Like today in my work, I was like stressed out about something. I was kind of missing the mark on what I was working on. At the end of the day, I was like, oh, if I had just like stopped and thought for a second, I could have done this, this, and this, and it would have made my day way easier. But when I'm in the moment, I like do the thing that is like the natural inclination, which is to like keep plowing forward or to, do something else or whatever, instead of like, oh, if I just make this phone call, then like I can figure out this, this, and this, and that'll free up this time. And then, whatever. It's not important. It's just an example from today. But people don't know how to think. They just are like, okay, well, there's got to be a way, because like I'm seeing with my eyes that immigration is bad, but like I believe that all people are equal and everyone should be able to be an American. So I guess I'll just keep believing that everyone should be able to be an American and just kind of ignore the truck bomber or the guy with the guy who plowed into people with the ISIS flag. Like I'm just gonna be like, well, he wasn't a foreigner, he was an American, so it wasn't really a problem of immigration. Like you do these little like dances in your mind to get around it, because you can't operate from the fundamental principle of, okay, God exists. And if God exists, that means everyone has dignity. And if everyone has dignity, then that means something about the place that you're born and the place that you're home. And if that means something, then the people who have the ability to support other people's living in their homes that means something. And if you don't do that, then that means something.
Yes.
And if you're doing the opposite of that, then that means something. Like there's a way to build out a system of thinking that's founded upon those initial principles, but most people don't think that way.
No, people say dumbass stuff like illegal immigrants commit crime at a lower rate than legal citizens. And I said that is 100% incorrect, because illegal immigrants have all committed at least one crime, and all Americans have not committed at least one crime. Like the way, like the words that you're using are making that impossible. Like you could say, I don't consider illegal immigration to be a crime, and if that's true, then, but that's the point that you're arguing, right? Also, if you're arguing that illegal immigrants shouldn't immigrate because they commit more crimes, I think that's a fine argument. I don't think it's a slam dunk argument, because I think you should argue from the principle of it is against the law. And that law is a just law. Like, that's what you should argue from. It's not
like nobody's arguing. The interesting thing is nobody's arguing to change the law. You know, nobody is saying nobody's coming out and being like, there should be no law. Like, anybody should be allowed to. That used to be the right wing position, actually. That used to be the right wing position. The right wing position in the 1990s was that Alex Jones was that borders were unhuman and they were wrong because we're all citizens of the world. And now 20 years later, 30 years later, it's lack of borders is globalism. And I think it's because Republicans realized that more immigration meant more votes for Democrats somehow. I don't know. Yeah.
That's probably what happened.
There's probably also something there of back in the 90s when America was at its peak. It kind of probably did feel wrong to keep people out.
Yeah.
Like, I can get a burger for $1. I can buy a car for $1,000. I can buy a house for $100,000.
$10,000.
Not in the 90s.
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, technology is
$100,000 in the 2000s. So it's like it was even cheaper in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm hedging here, but like technology was advancing at a rate where it felt like anything was possible. American hegemony was clearly established over the Soviets. Like, there was no competition from anyone. So it would be surprising if someone was like, keep them out, because why? We're only going up from here. And clearly, I think they thought that like our way of life was so good that as soon as people would come here, they'd be like, well, I'm just going to live like an American now. I think it was just it was that pungent in the air. So I could understand that position. And then once it started happening, then people were like, well, wait a minute.
Whoa.
Hold on a second. This didn't go how I thought it was going to go. Which is fair. You can't predict the future. Oh, we got to do the bonus show.
Yeah, man.
It's getting late. I need another beer or maybe a whiskey. No, I can't drink too much. It's only Thursday.
Man, it is only Thursday. Holy cow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's been fun. I'm going to get a couple of rounds of traffic school in, and then we'll head over to the bonus show.
You can't. I'm just kidding. Don't do traffic school. Maybe that should be our bonus show, as we'll live react.
My fidelity to the state of Florida makes it so that I feel like I ethically cannot have it on in the background and take the test without watching. But based on the first test, I think I could. Yeah. It was like, how many people die in America every year from car crashes? 40,000, 1,000, 18.
That's crazy.
I was like, okay, that's easy.
Let me pick this one.
Yeah, right.
Well, for all of your ethically sourced traffic school needs, the Crunch Catholic Podcast is here for you. If you like this show and you want to support us and hear more, go on over to patreon.com/thecrunch. Patrick, do you have anything else for the people?
If you want to help pay for my traffic ticket, go to patreon.com/thecrunch. Thank you.
Thank you all for listening. Please pray for us. We'll be praying for you, and we'll see you all next time.
I'll never get